Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Tall Tales podcast. Oh, man. Been a long week.
Sure has been. Been having a lot of gloomy weather lately.
Yeah, that doesn't help with nothing either.
No.
Oh, we did get some recording done, though.
We sure did. Make sure y'all check that out whenever it gets posted.
Yeah, I think we got mine and Levi's 2024 bow setups done this week, so we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of share our outlook on bow hunting, what we plan, not so much what we're using, just because there's going to be full-length videos on that where you all can actually see it, see us shoot some, stuff like that, and just kind of discuss what we kind of plan for the 2024 season in regards to bow hunting and stuff like that. So you actually managed to do something that I have not done yet, and you were able to kill a doe with your bow this year, and your smug ass face makes it so much worse. So 6 years. Is it? Yeah, I started bow hunting when I was 17. So, this will be 7 year. I gotta get it this year. I gotta get one this year. I've had the worst luck ever when it comes to bow hunting.
Yeah. So, funny thing about that, we were discussing this earlier when we were making our bow videos, that I never was a big bow hunter. Just me and my grandpa growing up hunting, it was guns only, whatnot. But once I got older to about, I think I've been bow hunting since, I used to hunt with the crossbow, and I crossbow hunted from the age of 16 to actually last year, or not last year, but the year before would have been the last year that I bow hunted, or crossbow hunted. I got my first compound bow last year, right before the 2023 archery season kicked in. And I love it, because me and John, we came here and sighted the bow in. I remember the day I got it. It was like a $650, $700 PSU Stinger bow setup, just beginner. And we're setting it up, whatnot. Then I can't remember if that was it was definitely before season whenever we sighted it in, because then the weekend after was the opening, or I think it was, I can't remember if it was opening week or weekend of the bow season, but anywho, I'm hunting a little small bean field, one of the places that I go and hunt, and I'm sitting there, and it was a day that I remember because it got rained out at work, and I was like, I'm going to cut in and try to go, do a little deer hunting. And
it must be nice to get rained out at work.
Right. So I sat there in this deer stand I got out there pretty late. I think I got out there, it was an afternoon hunt. I got out there like around 12, and it was just piss pouring rain all day long. And I was determined to sit there, because I was going to get out and go sit in the car and wait for the rain to get out or just go home. But, I was determined, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to wait. Well, sure enough, it comes about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it stops raining, and everything just starts getting lively. You can start hearing birds chirping again, whatnot. I'm sitting there, and there comes 2 does from the left-hand side of this field, because I'm hunting in the corner of the woods on a platform stand, and which I had them at 30 yards, but they were not at the angle I didn't want, and they kept walking further away, and she kept going, and I was getting pretty pissed at the point where then the time she did turn broadside, she was at 48 yards. Might I add, this bow that I've only sighted it in for 30 yards, but I'd be damned if I was going to walk out of that woods without something over my shoulders. So I'm sitting there, and I get this lined up, and I put it on in between like the third and fourth peep sight, or the pin, third or fourth pin on there, and there's no wind. I pulled back and I shot, and when I didn't really see her kick up or anything. She ran in the woods. I was like, can't wait. I'll never hear the end of this one. Sitting there thinking I missed, but I got down and I walked over and just kept looking in the field for this arrow, and I couldn't find it. I was like, there ain't no way. I keep looking, right where she's at, and I was like, just for some snowball chance in hell that she did get hit, I'm going to go look in the wood line. And I went and looked at the wood line, and I seen blood on a leaf. I immediately just, like, freaked out. I was like, holy crap. I'm looking over my hands, making sure that I didn't, like, cut my finger on a bolt or something, you know, on the pullback or something, and it ain't my blood. And I'm sitting there, and I look up, and I start seeing splotches of blood. And I was like, oh, sweet. I was like, I honestly, I didn't even think I thought I completely whiffed. She didn't kick or anything, you know. She just kind of, like, she just moseyed off into the woods. And I start following the blood trail, and I find her, and it's a 48-yard Texas heart shot right through her back end. And
I hit the femoral artery of a deer. You pulled that so far out of your ass, I don't think you could have went any deeper. The mere fact, you always do shit like this.
It's the first time I ever went bow hunting, because everyone always gave me crap for crossbow hunting, and I was like, I'm going to get this compound bow, and I'm going to show them that it's,
Well, you showed them, but
Yeah.
your math, you did the math problem, but your work was wrong.
Yeah.
You got the right answer, but the work was wrong.
Absolutely. And I'm sitting there, and I looked from where she dropped. She was 15 yards from the stand where I had, like, shot her at 48 yards. She died within 15 yards of my stand. I couldn't see her, though, from where I was at. And that was quite a trip, because it was starting to pick up rain again, and I had forgotten a knife. And I'm notorious for it. Like, I could pull something cool like that 48-yard shot, but I'm going to forget something like a knife or my rangefinder, constantly forgetting something. So, of course, I didn't have a knife, and I called my uncle, and it just so happened he was on his way home from work, going right across from the place that I hunt, and he had brought me the knife back there. Now, granted, this deer wasn't nothing to gloat about anything. It was a yearling deer, but yeah, absolutely. I made jerky out of her and got about 25 pounds worth of jerky off her, and it was delicious, But yeah, and then I used to give a lot of shit to people that bow hunted too, because I was like, I'm out here, I'm not trying to shoot and miss like 500 times before I can kill one. But as soon as I shot that one, hooked. I was like, this is something that I can get into.
So much hell when I bought my first bow. You're like, why are you throwing away money on that? You could have just bought a damn crossbow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, looking at my kill record, might have been the way to go for me.
Right.
But,
for crossbow, I think I've only missed one. I'm 6 for 7 on a crossbow, and I'm 1 for 1 on a compound. I'm almost thinking about just retiring my bow career right there on that one.
If Ben ever comes on the show, we have to... I almost want to tell the story, but I almost want Ben... You know what? I'll tell the story here in a minute. But, I'll just kind of share my year. Like I said, I've been bow hunting 6 years. Terrible luck just from hitting a twig with a rangefinder and ended up shooting low or whatever. Well, this year was the first time I got a really good, really chip shot on a deer. And I was sitting in a 2-man stand, and this a group of 6 does ran across the hill, and then one of them looped back out to the field line I was on and cut into the woods 20, probably 15 yards to my right. And I thought I had a pretty good clearing in there. So I drew back and settled my pin, felt pretty good, let it eat.
Mm-hmm.
And she jump kicked, made the most horrendous noise I've ever heard. I've never heard a deer make that. Like, it was like it screamed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the hell did I hit it with a rock after I shot?
Right.
What the hell? So she runs off up the hill. Well, I'm excited as can be, because like I said, 6 years in, never got to kill one with a bow. I was like, I finally did it. There's no way I messed this up. We're good to go. So I get down and I look for my arrow, because I'm not going to lie, also a yearling deer. But at this point, whatever I can get with the bow, I'm going to shoot.
Right.
So I was like, I'll get down and look for my arrow. Well, I get down, can't find my arrow, no blood. Like there's no way in hell this deer makes this noise and it doesn't die. So then I'm like, well, I'll hang out, because I saw her go up over the hill behind me. So I was like, I'll hang out for a few minutes. Well, I'm a real curious person. I can't let shit go. So I looked it up on YouTube, and the sound she made, and a guy was like, he had a video where he shot a doe and it did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's never found it. And I'm like, well, there's no way. You just didn't look hard enough. Whatever. Just me being an ass,
right.
Basically. Like,
so
I'm
just
better
trying to be
than this
optimistic
guy.
I'm trying to get you
Yeah.
to,
Yeah. So I wait about an hour. I go up on the hill. I follow where she went because I watched her the whole time until she ducked over this hill. I can't find nothing. Well, then I get on top of the hill and I start finding drops. I'm like, okay, well, we're getting somewhere now. We got drops of blood. Maybe I hit her and the arrow's in her and she's just dripping. Well, then I start finding puddles. I'm like, well, there ain't no way this deer is surviving this. Once again, my arrow was the size of the deer. There's no way. Well, I track her for about another 2 hours. Well, then we were supposed to go have lunch with my niece and nephew at school, so we went and did that, and I went back. I grabbed one of our buddies and took him with me, and we actually ended up going all the way across the little maybe 2 acre patch of woods I hunt, and he ended up jumping her. And I got a look at her. She wasn't limping. You know, she didn't really act hurt. She just kind of acted confused or like a little skittish and went up over the hill. My dad ended up coming out, and when he looked at the blood, he was like, dude, what I really think you did was I think you missed her low and just cut her across the chest. And that's why you started small and then it opened as she ran and you got the bigger puddles. So that was kind of a disappointing. And then we went back to the stand because Dad wanted to see where I shot her. And we found a twig that had been snapped by my arrow. So I think what happened was when I shot, because when I'm in the stand, I always try to aim higher for that exit wound. But it ended up hitting that twig and pushing the nose end of my arrow down. And that, I mean, it sucks, but, you know, it's something to learn from. Make sure 100%, especially with a bow. Because I'm a gun hunter. That's what I've always been. So a little bit of brush, cognitively, I don't even think about it. I'm just like, oh, I'm going to shoot right through it. And then with a bow, you know, dips the arrow down.
I've got a somewhat similar story to that with a crossbow, and this actually happened not last year's bow season, but it had been the 2022 bow season, the last year I crossbow hunted. There's a deer, and she came out at 40 yards, and I had shot her, but it sounded like a loud thwop. Like it wasn't like a, you know, it sounded like I thought I hit a branch or like a tree or something. I got up there and looked closer, and me, you know, I didn't know any different. I seen that the bolt had blood on it, but it also had a bunch of like meat and cartilage on it. And I tracked this deer almost every bit a mile and a half. Almost. Because like there'd be spots where there was a little bit of blood, then lots of blood, and I'd come to find out, looking closer at the bolt, there's bones on it. So I hit her front shoulder.
You hit that shoulder.
But, you know, just to think about how resilient that deer was to go
They're
almost
insane,
a mile
man.
and a half, you know, and still was pumping blood out. And eventually the blood did get smaller and smaller, but it's just like crazy to think that, you know, and most people would have thought that'd been a kill shot right there. I mean, I was pumped up thinking I'd already gotten this thing with as much blood as there was. But, I mean, that thing kept going and going. And, you know, maybe this year, if she's still around, I would like to find that deer. You know, that'd be a cool little thing. Because, I mean, the bolt went completely through it. And that's what just mind boggles me that this thing did
Well,
not.
I mean, talking about that, I know we're talking about bows, but that 8-point, that'd be another story we can tell later on. Just talk about how tough deer are. Yeah. It is insane. That 8-point I have up in the living room, I shot it 5 times with a 30-06. Not a single one was a bad shot. Its heart was in pieces. The lungs were destroyed. I mean, I had 2 bullets.
When something
go straight
has a
through
will
the
to
heart.
live, it's going to keep pumping and pushing through.
Well, the craziest part to me wasn't even that it had a will to live. I understand that.
Yeah.
I've shot enough deer, you know, they run.
Yeah.
You can make a perfect shot and one make it 300 yards, no issue. But the thing with me was I shot that buck, and every time I'd shot, he would, like, trot 10 yards, and then he'd start walking again. Like nothing ever happened. And, I mean, I'm not talking I shot this deer at 500 yards where the energy wasn't high.
Right.
I shot him at 110 yards. The amount of resilience that animal had. I mean, I was mad. I thought I was missing. I thought my gun was off. You know, my now wife was with me, and I told her I'm going to break this thing over my leg if I miss this deer again. Yeah. I just so mad. But talking about resilience and accidents and hitting twigs and just weird stuff that happens with bows. We have a buddy, Ben, that might be in a few YouTube videos, might be on the podcast here and there. I took him bow hunting for his first time. And the way the property was set up there, it was about 10 acres of huntable woods, but we still hunted the wood line. Basically urban hunting. We were hunting in the front yard out of tree stands. And I remember I could look down the tree line and see any deer that walked out in front of him across the driveway. And I gave him my dad's crossbow to use because he didn't have a compound yet. And I really didn't think it was a good idea to give someone a compound and then a week later or a day later, have him go shoot at a deer. So he takes this out, and I think this was partially my fault. I think our archery store didn't have crossbow broadheads, so I just bought the compound rages, which aren't rated for as much. But I remember I saw these deer come out, and I told him, like, hey, on this property, try not to shoot the small ones. I said, the property owner doesn't mind. I said, but I don't want to shoot small ones if we can help it. Well, I watch these deer come out, and I watch them for about 2 minutes, and all of a sudden, one jumps, the other two go sprinting, and I text him, like, did you get her? What's going on? Did you shoot at one? And he's like, yeah, I shot her, perfect broadside. It couldn't win any better. It was sweet. So I'm like, give it 45 minutes, it's warm. Or no, I said 30 minutes because it was warm. That was like opener of bow 3 or 4 years ago, and it was hot. And I was like, we'll give it a little bit, and then we'll go look. He said, okay. So I said, I'm going to keep hunting. In 30 minutes, go look. So he goes up, and he's like, man, I can't find blood anywhere. He said, there's no way I missed this deer. It was 20 yards. He said, we sighted it in last night. I was like, all right, well, I'll come up there. So I get out of the stand, and I go looking, and I'm same situation. I'm like, I can't find blood anywhere. I can't find a bolt. I can't find nothing. I was like, how could he have missed this deer? Because I've seen him shoot. He's not a bad shot. So I'm like, there had to be something weird happened. Maybe the bolt, he hit forward, it stuck in her, so I'll just look for blood. Well, I go up, and I was like, okay, this grass is not going to work. I was like, what would be the easiest thing? The driveway. So I go up to the driveway, and I find one speck of blood. So I'm like, all right, I'll follow that. So I go into the woods, and in my experience, I know deer will cut certain directions sometimes, but most of the time, if you've killed a deer, they go in a straight line.
Yeah, and they're looking for a spot to, like, where they feel safe that they can
lie down and
if they can, either they're going to try to keep pushing through, they don't know what's happened to them, so they're just bedding down and hoping that nothing else will get to them, And that's the thing about deer. They just go into the hardest places to go and drag out for you,
Well, so I remember I told Ben, I was like, hey, don't go walking left, right, everywhere. I said, if you muck up this tiny blood trail we have, I'll never be able to get back on it.
That's the worst thing when you get on a blood trail and you go forward a little bit and then you forget where the last blood trail was, so then you spend the whole 30 to 45 minutes trying to find where the last blood was.
Well, I'm fine with grid searching as long as that is the last resort. I don't like grid searching at all. Just because I do think you run a higher chance of messing up your trails. But, once again, personal opinion. But anyway, so we go cutting up this hill. And I have to keep reminding Ben, because he is, I love the little feller, but he's squirrel brained as all get out, which we all are, but he's just harder to wrangle in than some.
Yeah, it's like herding cats.
It's like herding cat. That is the best description I've ever heard of what it's
God
like trying to, God love him, yeah. But, so I keep walking straight, I'm just going slow. And every time I turn around, Ben is in a different area code of these woods. And I'm like, dude, stop. You're going to drive me up a wall. So after the 5th or 6th time, I give up on telling him this. And I go up the hill, and I walk over a crest. Well, there she is. Keep in mind, at that time, I was shooting a 30-inch axle-to-axle bow. And I walked up, and my bow damn near covered the deer. So, once again, we're starting to see a pattern of Ben having a hearing problem. If he heard shoot doe, he did not hear the not little part.
Right.
And if he did, oh well, it's not a big deal at the end of the day. I'm not mad at him.
Shooter's preference.
Yeah,
if you think it's a small deer or not,
I was happy he killed one. But I get up on this hill, and I turn around to tell him, and he's literally walking in a big circle. So I'm like, you know what?
Just let him.
I thought about it. But I was like, I can have even more fun with this. So I walk up, I set my bow on it. I sit and look at it for a minute. And I'm like, Well, we'll give it about 2 minutes and I'll go back and get him. 2
Yeah.
minutes later, I walk back over the hill. He's still walking circles. Hasn't found a drop of blood, nothing. So I start inching back towards him like, hey, stop. I start whispering at him and he's like, what? And I walk up, I'm like, hey, I just jumped your doe up on the hill. I said, I saw blood coming out of her side, but we need to give her a little bit of time. I said, I think it's a good shot. I just think you hit back. I said, we'll go up to last blood. We'll mark it with an arrow, and then we'll go. God love him once again, because we get up to the hill. My bow, remind you, is sitting on this doe. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, where my bow's sitting was last blood. And he looks up and looks straight back down and starts looking for blood again. And I said, did you not hear? I said, did you look at what my bow is sitting on? Shit you not, right hand on the Bible. He looks at him and goes, I found my deer. And it took all my willpower not to just turn and smack him in that moment.
God love him.
God love him. But he had never gutted a deer either. So here's where the story gets weird. Besides losing the blood trail, we get up there, and you can tell from the entrance the deer was broadside when he hit it. And I mean, it was perfect, right behind the shoulder. The exit wound was back in the stomach cavity. So I was like, how in the world? Well, once we opened it up, we found out it nicked a rib, and that rage just cut sideways and went out at a 45. I mean, he took out the front lung, nicked the back lung, and hit the side of the liver as he was going out. Well, I had told him I would gut his deer because he had never done it. Mm-hmm. And then when I saw the exit wound, I said, never mind, you're going to learn today.
Yeah,
so I had
good old gut shot.
I taught him how to do it that day. And I used to have a video of him dragging that deer out. But dude, I mean, if we'd have both dragged it, it would have been pointless. We could have just like held it up.
That doe I shot with my compound, I felt like Daniel Boone when I slung that thing over my shoulders and tied its legs together and walked with it like a fireman carry all the way to my car in my uncle's truck.
I shot one like that, but that was a science experiment. That's a story for another time too, because that's long range shooting and everything like that. But yeah, so that's kind of a few of our more funny stories about bow hunting and kind of see our outlook where we're coming from.
Absolutely.
But so you kind of know my plans. What are your plans for bow hunting this year? Are you gonna keep bow hunting whitetail? Do you want to try to expand out? Maybe go out west?
I think I want to try to do a turkey hunt this year with
that
a bow,
because
I know that's I like
another thing. I will admit you're better at than me.
I like the challenge of hunting, because once it becomes not a challenge, then it's just not fun for me anymore. Like I like to give myself little goals and challenges to go out there and do. So I know a turkey hunt would be a really good one to do. It's not so much. This is more fishing, but bow fishing too. It's something that something I'm really like kind of into. I need to get a bow hunting rig. I got some friends. We go out on the river and we'll bow hunt from sundown to sun up, and it is just a blast when you get a boat full of fish. And it's just a good time overall.
Yeah.
But eventually, just shooting my bow in general, it's just something that I enjoy doing now. Like, just coming out there, putting a couple of rounds in a target, different ranges, different angles, it's something fun that I'm going to get into. I want to eventually get into 3D target shooting.
That's what I was going to ask, if you wanted to do target.
Yeah, eventually I do, but I think as of now, in this part of my life, I want to focus more on just the hunting aspect of bow myself, just only getting one compound bow deer kill so far, but eventually we're going to go compound to recurve, just different things like that. There's so many things you can do with bow hunting. It'd be cool
if you could build your own bow.
Absolutely.
And then that would be a real cool, like, catch, clean, cook.
Oh, absolutely.
Kind of deal. Which I do think, you have a great starter bow with your PSE, but if you want to get into target, I do think a longer axle to axle would make it easier. Even if you stick with PSE, PSE's not a bad brand by any means.
Right.
It's all personal preference at this point. That's been a big thing I've been saying for the last year.
I might have gotten more lucky with my bow hunting, but John is obviously our bow guy because he's the one that got me into it. Like I said, if it wasn't for him, I would have never have even looked at one or even touched one, let alone Which brings up another good story. I just remember the first time I shot a compound bow with you and didn't realize that you have to look through that little peephole.
You have to look through the peephole. I forgot about
shooting
that.
skeet, and John just so happened to brought his bow and his target. And of course, I'm sitting there shit talking, thinking that, I could hit this target, and I can't remember how far it was.
It was 20 yards.
20 yards, but me, like I said,
granted, I
have never shot a compound bow.
And it
ever.
wasn't set up for you, which does make a world of difference. I was shooting heavy.
I pulled it back, and I'm looking just straight at the pins, not looking through that little peephole. And I shot, and this arrow goes like 70 yards past it into the wood line. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell is wrong with that? I looked at him like, and see, this is why I don't shoot bows. He goes, what did you do? I was like, I just looked down the pins. And he goes, did you look through this little thing? I was like, no. And he goes, well, no shit. And that's what caused the arrow to go 70 yards completely behind the target. I was like, dude, I know I'm not that terrible at shooting something that close.
That was fun. I had completely forgotten about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good one.
That one just kind of popped up in the back of my head, and I was like, man, do I tell this one? I was like, it's funny. I was like, okay, it's hilarious.
I mean, we've all missed.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, it's all part of it. I've shot 6 years, and I can still manage to miss a target every once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
But, so I bought my bow. I bought my face for this November for Black Friday, and I bought it more in the line of thought of I also want to get into target. Mm-hmm. So I've always shot 30-inch axle-to-axle bows, 29s. I didn't really like 29s, so I stuck with 30s. And I was like, man, let me try a longer axle-to-axle. And I ended up getting the Phase 4 33, and it has made a world of difference. Anyone that says 3 inches isn't enough, they're a fucking liar. Right. But...
Well...
That's a different podcast altogether. That isn't for this
your opinion, man.
So I bought the 33 with target in mind because that's a big thing I want to get into this year. One of my buddies, he's building an indoor 3D course for all of us to go shoot.
That'd be awesome.
Which I think that will be awesome. I haven't told you about that yet. No. But so I always shoot single pin, which is another thing. Good for target. A lot of people don't like it for deer hunting, which I understand completely. Like I said, I've had misranges. I've set my pin wrong. I understand. I just don't shoot as good with multi-pin for some reason. I don't know if I'm so scatterbrained that I can't focus on that one pin when I need to.
Me personally, because it's like I can just set the pins at the yards that I know how far it can shoot, and that's just like... For being a beginner bow hunter,
that's better when you're starting off.
100%. Because with just like one pin and having to adjust it myself seems like so much like it seems like you would think that just sounds simple, but to me it just sounds way more complicated.
There's a lot of anxiety if a deer walks out and pegs you, and you got to be like, oh shit, like I still have to move my pin. You almost. With a single pin, I do think it's better if you're hunting within 20 to 30 yards.
Yeah.
In the woods. Now, if you're hunting a field and you're going to have all the time in the world to, okay, this deer is going to walk here, or I think it's going to walk here, range it, set it close to where it's going to be, and then know your windage. In the woods,
I can pick certain trees and know that's how many yards I got, to where in the field, you don't got that. You have to range find them, and that's why I like my multiple pin setup, is that I can set it for, I think we set it for what, 15, we set for 10, 20, 15.
10, 20, 30.
Yeah, 10, 20, 30. And me personally, I like that. I like knowing just the distance, and all I got to do is just up and down, adjust,
Yeah.
Whereas if the single pin, you're sitting there having to, it's a lot more movement, Like for me, it's, biggest thing bow hunting is staying still and like just moving to where that deer ain't going to see you. So the less that I got to do, the better it is, the chances of me harvesting this deer.
Right. So that's why I practice a lot of gap shooting. Mm-hmm. So I'll set my pin to 20 and I'll shoot at 30 and just see, where we're hitting. A lot of times I just leave my sight set to 30 and then I'll dope for 20 or I'll dope for 40. It's just easier that way. For me with the single pin, I know that kind of defeats the purpose of it. And it does make it sound like, well, why don't you just run a 2-pin or a 3-pin? But I don't shoot as well, and I don't want to take that risk of having a shittier shot.
On my bow, I got 1, 2, 3, 5 pins, but I've only got 3 pins. That have got something on it. That I know for a fact I can shoot that. Now, I think a single pin is easier to sight in, perhaps, maybe, if you get what I'm saying.
Well,
from my point of view.
so it is, but it isn't. Just because, like, you're running a sight tape, and a sight tape can be a real bastard to find out. On this bow, I got lucky. I found it pretty quick, but I mean, you have to go through and you're just basically guessing where to turn your wheel. And if I run a different arrow, I have to make a whole nother sight tape, whereas you just adjust pins.
Right.
I mean, there's pros and cons to each, but I got lucky. So far, I think my strings are still stretching. I may need a different sight tape by season this year.
I remember whenever we sighted mine, and there was something you said, I'm trying to remember what exactly it was. Whenever you're shooting low on your sights, you don't adjust low, or you do.
You follow the arrow.
The arrow, right.
So whereas when we would hunt with guns, you go opposite. So if you're shooting low, you go up.
Adjust, yeah.
If you're shooting...
And that's something that always just, like, mind-boggled me that I never really understood until we started shooting.
Yeah, so the best way I've heard it described as with a gun, you chase the bullseye. With a bow, you chase the arrow. And that's the easiest way to think of it, because you're adjusting... And honestly, it makes more sense to me chasing the arrow than it ever has, like... You're shooting low, you go up, which would technically make it closer. Maybe it's just my bow's taken over my mind for the past 6 years, but it makes sense to me that, you go up, you're going to hit high, you're going to hit lower because you're moving your pin, whatever, making it the arc different. But I don't know. That's just, my brain doesn't work right all the time anyway, so I'm not the person to talk about that. Right. But, yeah, I'm planning on doing a new arrow build. I would like to try to go to a TAC event this year. I don't know if I'll be able to make it to one with work and everything. But I've always wanted to do a total archery challenge, and I really want to try the 111-yard
going to a hunting convention, like, how they have, like, Comic-Con for, like, anime and stuff like that. But in the hunting world, I think that would be very beneficial for us to go to and just see, because... There's a lot of things that I can learn from going there and whatnot. I mean, I'm sure I could pick up on a lot more bow stuff going there and talking to people that have shot bows, both, professionally, competitively, and I've also hunted all their lives too, using it. And, I feel like you can learn a lot from that. But a lot of hunting is just trial and error, man. You try it out. If it works, you keep it going. And if it don't, you move on and find something that does work.
Or I guess in my case, you become the definition of insanity. You do the same shit over and over and still don't manage to kill a different result. Eventually you whip out the 30-06 and it gets a whole lot easier from there.
Call it a day.
Call it a day. Yeah, eventually opener gun rolls around and you're like, well, time to put the bow up for another year. Yeah, but yeah, that's just that's my plan. Is a lot of bow hunting. I think I'm gonna try to put in for an elk tag this year in Kentucky and see if I can get an archery tag for that, because they are a lot bigger. I've been looking at a lot of
hunts, them hunts in Africa, a lot of them are not that expensive. It's just so much of, like, you have to do so much, like, so many shots you have to get and whatnot for going down there, because you go down there and catch something, it's terrible, for you.
Well, that, and it doesn't get expensive until you want to bring stuff home.
Right.
When you start flying mounts home, that is when it gets expensive. Like $18,000 for 5
Which
mounts.
I think if it was there were some hunts that you could go and they shoot, like, there's like a lot of foxes in hunts. You can, like, shoot so many foxes, and then you get a baboon or something like that.
And like
there's like
hogs,
different packages you can get. And like the smaller bundles. I mean, there's a lot more you can hunt down there. I mean, it's just animals I've never even heard of or have seen. It's really cool to be able to, eventually get down there and to be able to do that, with time.
Gemsbuck, Greater Kudu are two that I want to hunt with a bow so bad. Impala but they are, from everything I've seen, they are one of the harder. They are so jumpish. It's almost like our blacktail over here.
I would like to go out west and go on a pronghorn hunt.
That would be
tracking
sick.
across a prairie, like where it's just flat land all the way across. That's so. To me, that seems like a challenge and a half, because they're already a very skittish animal.
Well, the same thing
to
with
get up
mule
that
deer.
close, yeah.
I
absolutely.
would love, if we really wanted to challenge ourselves from everything I've seen. Have you ever heard of a coos deer?
Yes.
Apparently,
Really
those
small.
are the ones. If you just want to rip your hair out while trying to bow hunt them, those are the ones to do it. So I don't know if I have that kind of patience. That would probably be a
Or
rifle
even like
hunt for
Sika
me.
deer,
Sika deer, yeah.
Up in like the northeast part of
go
America.
hunt blacktail. Go hunt. I would love to go on a black bear hunt.
Oh yeah.
So that is bucket list for sure. Moose, a caribou. Caribou is one that I never thought I would be big into, and recently it's just been like, that would be sick.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's the basic plans for me. Try to pick out maybe, like I said, do the elk hunt. Try to. It's all on a lottery, so all depends on luck of the draw, quite literally.
Right.
But just continue deer hunting.
Staying busy.
Lucky
with the
year
animals
number 6.
This will be year 2 for me.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
But now that I've gotten that one bow kill under my belt, I can be a lot more patient now and like start going for like target deer.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to just get something under my belt to get that out of the way. Just the pressure of it, and I'm glad it was just that that little small doe. But that's just shooting, even though it wasn't a big trophy deer. It was still a thrill of like seeing how close it got, and I know I shot it at 48 yards, but still, I mean, that was just the fact that the bow is not even sighted in for 48 yards, and I did
There's
that.
so many people going to be so mad about that. So mad, because whenever you text me, I was like,
you can't
no
be mad
way.
because like I'm just like when it comes to hunting, I've pulled off a lot. Like I'm not saying I'm completely lucky, but there's a lot of lucky stuff that I've pulled off.
Yeah,
that most people would just sit there and be like, "What in the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, why did you even try that?
Right.
In what world does that... Because that's what...
You missed 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, well, I guess that is true. Because whenever you text me and sent me that picture, I thought, only Levi.
I sat there and I was like, man, they're going to get a kick out of this. So they're sitting there like, oh, it's going to be hard, don't be discouraged, you miss and whatnot. And like... I sat there and I had the biggest shit-eating grin when I took
I'm
a picture,
sure
I took
you
a picture
did.
of that dude.
I could see the face you made.
I was sitting there thinking of it all the time. Some people were like, "Oh, this is so hard," and I just made it look easy just that one instance. But it is hard because after that, I continued the bow hunt, but just until gun season. And I mean, it's hard, I mean, you got to get that deer within, Now I try to get him within 30 yards realistically and try to get a good clean shot on him. I mean, it's hard, dude, and it's just like, especially whenever. You could be 30 feet up in a tree, but still any of that movement of me pulling my... I mean, I'm a long, lanky individual, so it's a lot easier to see me moving up and around there, And
I'm just out here Winnie the Poohing it up in the tree.
I'm sitting there and just waiting for the right moments to sit there for a deer to put its head back down, to pull back and be sitting there ready.
Well, and then you have false... where deer will put their head down false and then look right back. I mean, they're smart.
Yeah,
they are.
absolutely.
It's hard to not get pegged by one and get that shot off.
Patience is key, especially in bow hunting.
I'll tell
any
you,
hunting in
when
general.
my patience was tested most. I remember this year, I was in that 2-man again earlier in the year, and these 2 does. It was 3 minutes before legal light was over, and this doe ran up. Evening.
Okay.
And she ran up and stopped. I mean, I could have spit on this deer, and I drew back and couldn't see my pin. And I was like, oh, you're shitting me.
Right.
Like, this deer will never do this again. Like, it took every bit of my willpower to let the bow back down. I was like, if I had a gun, it's so simple. Oh, yeah. So simple.
Oh, absolutely.
But once you start looking through a peep and at a pin, and then you're looking at, a dark silhouette at that point, because I'm in the woods, so it's dark. I mean, I can just make out that silhouette. Well, once you start looking at your pin, you can't see that silhouette.
No.
So then you're like, hey, it's not ethical. I shouldn't do it. you let back down, you check your phone, you're like, I got 3 minutes left, and
Yeah.
this deer is going to sit here and make my life hell for all of it.
But it's just all with, maturity of deer hunting,
Yeah.
Over the years, I have definitely matured a lot with my deer hunting. Because, there was one morning that I shot 5 deer right off the bat just because I was hunting with my grandpa the day before, and he wouldn't let me shoot something at 300 yards. And the next day I went by myself, and I was like, you know what? If it walks out, it's dying. And sure enough, I shot 5 deer in one morning.
I've never heard him so angry.
Oh, yeah.
He was
sitting there, I shot the
belligerent.
5, and I was sitting there, I was like, man, I better call this man, because he's the only one that's going to help me deal with these deer, and I've got 5 of them on the ground. And I call him, and I tell him, like, hey, he goes, did you get one? I hear you all shooting and whatnot. I was like, I got 5 here, and I'm about to put down 2 more. He said, oh, well, goddamn, just wait till I get there. So then he gets there, and I'm over there tagging them in online, which that's another thing I can't stand. I miss the nostalgia of just going to the gas station where everyone else has got their deer, and you're sitting there tagging in. There's a dude in there with a notebook filling out all the paperwork for you and whatnot. That's just, I miss that kind of stuff, Everything's just resorting to online on the internet. But, after shooting those 5 deer, I really took a step back and I was like, man, do I really need to shoot these 5 deer? I was grateful because all the meat, I was able to process, and I had meat for a long time.
Just as a side note, this was back when you could kill 8 does in
Indiana.
Oh,
yeah, disclaimer. This was
this was not last year, last 2 years
This was
ago.
This was actually the last year that I went youth hunting. I know, or used by a youth license where you could do the 7 does and 1 buck, and it was only like $7.
That was ridiculous. I'd kill for that now.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
$90.
I'd have killed for my
bundle.
grandpa back in the day. They have the lifetime license, and he almost got mine. And man, I wish he would have, because those right now they have not done them in so long. They don't think they'll ever do them anymore. But that is something clutch to have, But why would they? Because now they just make more money.
The state, that ain't no joke.
The state just makes more money charging you for the tag and the license all separate and whatnot, But, yep, after that, I really, that's where I matured, and, I should only be, that's when you start practicing better deer management,
Yeah.
And we'll get into that on a different episode or whatnot, but, this maturity of, the more you hunt, the more you sit there and will realize that this is something that, an amateur hunter beginner would do, and you don't blame them for doing it, but, the further you go...
when you're young, too.
Yeah.
Even,
you're getting into the sport. You're trying
point,
to get, you're trying to get the feel for it, and, get kids, hooked to it, So, if you want them to shoot, this is whenever this is right, or if you want them to tag out on the first day, let them, man. And, if that's something they want to do, then so be it, But,
and you have the facilities for it.
Absolutely.
And you're going to use the meat, obviously, But yeah, that's kind of something I think whenever you start hunting on your own and you start getting your own places and everything, you start thinking about it more. Because because
you don't have someone there to stop you or hold you back from doing all this crazy shit. You
right, and then you have to deal with the consequences.
You have to do it upon
your
yourself
shit.
to be like, hey, is this really worth messing or going through all this trouble to do this, and that? Or should I just wait and be patient for this to come along, this opportunity,
Right, well, that's like this year I tagged out, but, I didn't do it just so I could.
Right.
Me and my wife bought our house, and it was a great way to save money if I killed 3 deer.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I killed 3 deer.
Well, the 2 deer that I shot this year, I got my bow deer, and then I got my gun deer, and like I said, I could have tagged out beginning of the season, really, but it's just I had no reason to.
Right.
Now my meat was a little low this year in the freezer, so I got it stocked backed up, and I'm happy with that, So now once I do, there's some seasons that I will meat hunt where if it walks out, it's going to die, and that's also good deer management also, picking out the right deer to shoot, and just filling up the freezer. But then after I fill my freezer up, the next year I'll still have some deer meat over to where I can sit back and be more patient and wait for that, target buck to come out that I've been chasing all year and whatnot, rather than just first thing comes out, I'm swinging an arrow or a bullet right down there,
Yeah. Well, I do believe we're getting a wee bit too much into the management side of things, so I think that'll be a good place to stop for this episode.
Absolutely. Make sure y'all check out the YouTube channel as well. You know, we'll
Yep.
be posting a lot of videos on there. We'll be on Spotify as well.
I'm trying to get us on Apple Music and Amazon Music as well.
We do have Facebook,
Instagram,
and TikTok.
TikTok has nothing uploaded yet, just because we don't have any recorded or any edited footage at this point. We have 2 videos recorded that I will release. Probably like an edited trailer on the TikTok for those.
Yeah.
But overall, I do believe that's it. And don't forget to give a rating, a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow the Facebook, follow everything, just so you can keep up with us if you enjoy it.
Give us some feedback, you know.
Yeah. What do we need to improve on?
Absolutely.
Do I need to tamper with audio quality? Do you want us to try to do?
Give us some ideas, you know, of stuff that you would maybe like to hear. You know, this is for you all, you know.
Yeah.
We're not doing this for money or whatnot. We're doing this something that we're passionate about, and this is something that we've always wanted to do, you know. And
plus it's just fun telling stories.
Absolutely, and we're doing this for you all, you know.
Yeah, same stories we've told each other, and we're still sitting here laughing at them.
Yeah.
Just all these years later. But we really appreciate y'all listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Y'all come back now, you hear?